Gentlemen, are y'all ready?
We're ready.
On the right flank? Please set that flank ready.
Flank is ready.
7:01, I'm really late.
Good morning. It is now 9 a.m. on October 14th, 2025, and the Brazos County Commissioners Court will come to order with a workshop. This workshop will discuss two items: establishing guidelines and criteria for a consent item agenda and presentation and discussion draft scope of work for our master plan. At this time, the county calls Project Manager Trevor Lansdowne. Trevor, good morning.
Morning, Judge and Commissioners. Trevor Lansdowne, Director of Project Management. Thank y'all for coming today for the workshop. Again, like Judge said, we've got two items. The first one being we've kind of discussed potentially going to a consent agenda for Commissioners Court at some point once we establish it. We're working through a new piece of software to handle the agendas, and Marcia, Aubrey, Cheryl, everybody's been really great as we've been trying to get that thing set up, and we're getting really close to being done with it. But again, going to bi-weekly courts, I think the consent agenda is something that we can leverage to make this whole process more efficient. And so we met several weeks back, again with the executive assistant. Oh, sorry, Commissioner.
We're not going to bi-weekly.
I'm
Bi-monthly.
bi-monthly, yes. See, that's always one of those weird terms that it's bi-weekly, bi-monthly, yes. Twice a month, I'll make that clear. And so we kind of went through, we grabbed an agenda and kind of went through the items and tried to kind of slot items where we felt it made sense to group them into a single item under consent. And so I previously sent y'all this list, and we can kind of go through it as well. But really, I think this is a conversation amongst the court to kind of decide if there are items that they would like to move up into consent, move out of consent as we go through. And your second piece of documentation there is a copy of today's agenda with highlighted items that would potentially roll into consent if we move forward with the parameters as they are on the page today. And so kind of going down the list, we looked at budget amendments, and again, feel free to chime in or interrupt me if you'd like. Budget amendments, tax refund applications, payment of claims, county policy adoption, contract renewals, committee appointments, donated property, road and bridge items, plats, utility bores, anything that comes out of road and bridge for approvals, permissions to advertise for previously budgeted projects or budgeted items, memorandums of understanding or interlocal agreements that have no financial impact to the county, and then contract change orders less than $100,000. And then at the bottom's acknowledgments as a single item. I know we have some ceremonial items that are acknowledgments sometimes, including jail population, juvenile population, and now we're starting to do caseloads for the DA and the public defender, and those would obviously not go into consent because they're going to get up and present on those each week. And so that's where we landed. Again, this is a suggestion. This isn't etched in stone, and so I'd love to hear y'all's input on that. And then that leaves for regular items any presentations, resolutions, or proclamations, new contracts or awards over $100,000, MOUs and ILAs with a financial impact, any HR items that come through. This one kind of went back and forth because sometimes there is and like on today's agenda, there are personnel action forms, but also job descriptions and also budget moves for some of those. And so we didn't want to wrap those up into consent in case the personnel action forms got approved, but y'all decided to not approve the budgetary item associated with that. And so we wanted to leave those out in case, so just to make sure there wasn't a conflict. And then all election-related items, and then anything related to grants, both permissions to request and then the acceptance of those grants.
Thank you, Trevor. Commissioners? Yes. Commissioner Nettles.
Yeah, so I had a couple questions. One, were you able to determine if any other counties use this procedure? I mean, I've served on boards where we did, and I think it's useful. I was just curious if other counties do it.
Yeah, so we looked, as we were kind of building the agenda, we found it's kind of 50-50. There's several counties that do it, some that don't, and it seems to be a personal preference amongst the court in that county. Both the cities leverage a consent agenda as well here in town, and so again, I think as we go to bi-monthly, the agendas are going to grow, and that this should sort of help us make this whole process a little bit more efficient.
Okay, the other question I had, and it's I'll make sure I clarify my understanding. If an item's on a consent agenda and a commissioner has a question about it, we can pull it out of the consent agenda to discuss, correct?
Yes, sir. I think that's probably something else that we need to establish is how y'all want to handle that. Do we want to make a motion and a vote to pull that item off, or do we want to just do it with one commissioner deciding to pull that out? And I think that's, again, a discussion amongst the court to kind of give a little direction on which way we want to go with that.
Concur.
Thanks.
Commissioner Condola.
Under presentations, I assume that includes what we wanted to see, which is regular capital project updates, regular road and bridge updates, so citizens can see how the taxpayer dollars being spent in the county. And I guess that would fall under presentations?
It would, and I think those might be workshops also, depending on how we kind of move forward. If we do those during the regular court agenda, or if we handle those as a one-off, as a quarterly workshop or monthly, bi-monthly, or however we want to look at that. But yes,
Okay.
any presentations would fall outside and happen. We always do presentations first, I feel like, on the agenda. So
Sure.
Good.
Thank you.
Commissioner Brown.
Trevor, of course, cities have been using consent agendas for years and years and years.
yes, sir.
And in that process, normally if one person wants to remove one item to go into, it doesn't have to be voted on by the entire board. So, and looking at this list, the only thing I'd like to see moved to regular agenda items is contract change orders less than 100,000. But all the rest of it is fairly simple.
Okay. Make a note.
You good?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Watson.
I'm good.
No, I don't have anything. This is sort of a new thing for me, so I'm going to have to think about this a little bit more. I apologize, I'm a little bit, something again.
It's going around. It's
So, I'm sorry. So, but I'll have to think about this a little bit more. This is a new process for
Sure.
me. And even as I was reading it and looking at it, I haven't quite grasped, but I'll be honest, I haven't quite grasped it yet. I may have some additional questions.
Absolutely.
We can do those offline, but so far the format looks reasonable. At first, when Fred, Commissioner Brown mentioned moving the contract change orders, I thought that was something that we had sort of resolved in one of our previous votes. So I'm not quite sure one way or the other whether or not it needs to be moved or not. But I thought we had made a decision on how we would handle that in a previous agenda item that we had passed on.
I think the previous agenda, the purchasing agent now has the ability to execute change orders up to the limits that we established on contracts that the purchasing agent executes. Otherwise, outside of that, if the court awards the contract, they want the change orders to go through court.
And I'm jumping out of order here a little bit, and I know that Bruce wants to speak, and so does Commissioner Brown. But I was going to make a point at the end of this discussion that for the public and the listening audience and all those in the departments, we are also restructuring where we have different types of committees that will start meeting. And we've worked with Mr. Wendt, and Trevor and I have talked that certain agenda items that meet or come under the $100,000 threshold, those will be vetted at a more extensive level than they have in the past. So yes, if we see something that we think needs to be on the agenda, it will be pulled. And I think Fred was correct. It will only take one commissioner to voice his or her opinion that that agenda item needs to be a major agenda item. And so as we work through this process and we move down the road to implement a consent agenda, bear with us, but it's going to be a working document. We're not going to make rules tomorrow and jump in and slide a lot of things under the carpet. We're going to do this as we have been for the last few months, very transparent, open, and everybody, from my opinion, sitting here, has been very engaged, and it's refreshing, and it's a heck of a team, and we're working to a particular goal, and we're very thankful that everybody's engaged and ready to move forward to Fred's point, with a consent agenda item that has been regular business in our other municipalities and government entities. So thank you. Bruce?
Commissioner Brown, I just wanted to clarify, on item number K, contract changes.
Yes,
Would
sir.
you remove all of those, or would you change the number, lower it from 100,000, like anything under 50,000? Or is there some level of dollar amount that wouldn't need to be on a regular agenda?
I'd like to stick with 100,000. And mainly because there's too many of our contracts that we just automatically give them another year or 2 years, and they've been with us for years and years. And I know the argument is, well, we have a good price from these people, blah, blah, blah. But if it was a bad price, they wouldn't be holding up their hand to go for another year. So I'd rather leave it just like it is.
Okay.
And I think we made that commitment, which we've been talking about when we have the opportunity. The way we do contracts will change, and we're committed to that, so that the issues that you have trouble with hopefully will be avoided in the future.
Yes, sir. And in addition, for the public and also for our groupies that come every time we have a meeting, all you have to do is contact one of
Engaged,
us.
active citizens?
Yeah, our very active citizens. All you have to do is contact us, and if you have an issue with one particular item on the consent agenda, let us know and we'll pull it off. So,
And
Thank
just to be clear, there will be a public input portion for the consent agenda item as a whole, and so public will still be able to
Correct.
speak on those items. If in lieu of pulling it out, if we don't feel like it needs to, and again, that's up to y'all, the public won't lose their ability to give their input on the consent.
Excellent.
So, okay.
Commissioners, any other points we need to make at this point? Trevor, anything else from your end?
No, the only other thing I was just going to kind of, and again, y'all have the kind of sample agenda, but and I use today's agenda as an example. So this would allow us to go from essentially 34. Well, acknowledgements don't take votes, so we'll call it 30 items down to about 13 underneath the consent. So
Which still have the ability for our engaged citizens to comment on all those agenda
Absolutely.
items. Correct.
for sure,
Nothing else is changing.
nothing else is changing.
Correct. And it
This
is a-
looks more like the meetings we had when I was with the city of Bryan. I mean, as far as people still got to speak on each item, but you did have consent.
Sure.
And to that point, I think it will be a working document, that will evolve and get better, probably really especially over the next 6 months, but this looks good.
Absolutely, and I'm sure we didn't think of everything when we went through. We looked at
Yeah.
several agendas to try to catch it all, but every once in a while, there's items that come up that may not fit in one of these categories, and we'll just kind of continue to develop it over
But
time.
together, court, the team, and our engaged citizens, I think we'll get there quickly.
Yes,
And
sir.
this new format of meeting bi-monthly will be very effective, so thank you.
Right.
Does that conclude agenda
That
item number
concludes-
1?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. We will move to agenda item number 2, discussion the draft scope of work of our county master plan. Trevor, you're back.
Yeah, back again.
It's like budget time. Nina's enjoying watching you in the hot seat.
Okay, so county master plan. We've been talking about this for a little while through the budget process, and we're now the new fiscal year. Now the project's funded. Before we solicit for qualifications, wanted to kind of go over the scope draft, the draft scope, to make sure that we're in alignment with what the court's looking for out of this deliverable, and then again, sort of a just quasi direction that we can move forward. So I sent y'all this last week, and we can read the whole thing, or if y'all have specific items that we want to cover, we can. But again, I'll just kind of read through the purpose. So, purpose of the county master plan is to establish a long-term county-wide master plan that provides a 20 to 25-year roadmap for growth, service delivery, infrastructure, and operational efficiency. The plan will guide elected officials, department heads, and staff in making data-driven decisions on facilities, land use, technology, and services. Comparisons will be made not only to counties of a similar size today, but also to those counties representing Brazos County's projected future population to ensure the county is prepared for the next generation of growth. And kind of going, and I'll just kind of hit some high level items. A mission statement, long-term goals, principles for operations. Again, I think the idea is that this would be a multidisciplinary firm to come in with a pretty large team. I think this is a very ambitious scope. There's a lot here, but I think it will be really good for the county as we execute it. We're talking population and demographic growth, department space and operational needs, evaluating some of our facilities and real estate items. We're handling some of the facility assessments through the deferred maintenance program, so we're not going to dive deep into that. We've already kind of got that covered. We've got a section for technology, AI, and business process improvement, which includes a ton of workflow mapping, business process evaluations, comparable to other counties, making sure that we're doing things the right way. We may be all doing things perfect, but finding out how other counties are doing it, and if there's a more efficient way to do it, I think is what we've all kind of talked about and where we're trying to get. Technology where we can leverage it with knowing what those business processes are. If there's workflows and things that we can create in software to help out our departments to make them more efficient, I think is a big one. Looking at transportation and mobility, evaluating how the population and growth will affect the transportation needs in the county, identifying growth corridors, kind of figuring out where does the county need to go next with our facilities, if we need annex buildings in other parts of the county, because it's hard for folks to get all the way to downtown Bryan as we continue to grow out. Organizational efficiency and workforce alignment. I think some of this will come out of the compensation and benefits study that HR is doing. But I think the other piece of it is finding out what departments do other counties have as they've grown in size to provide more services to the citizens, and kind of just to give us a roadmap on where we're headed next. A long-term services outlook that kind of ties back to that. And then looking at the deliverables that we would expect out of the firm that gets the work would be an established foundational information, including a mission statement, principles, and then long and short-term strategic goals. Benchmarking and projections with demographics for both population growth and employee growth. Some infrastructure and physical planning for real estate and facilities. Operational planning to give us workflow maps and an integration plan. And then again, there's a full kind of engagement piece of this too, with both the public, internal stakeholders, and then kind of ongoing coordination with all the other AHJs in the area to make sure that the direction we're going aligns with the priorities and the policies with it that we all have to work underneath, and the framework that's already kind of set for us. And then a rough timeline. I think this is a year to an 18-month process. This is gonna take some time. It's gonna be a lot of meetings for a lot of folks, but I think it's well worth it, and I think that's a good investment by the county. So,
Trevor, nice work. Thank you for taking the time to put that together to give us a document to start to work with.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Nettles?
Yeah, great work. Obviously, you put a lot of effort and time into it. I did have a couple things I'd like you to consider adding. One is resource management. I'd like to see specific strategies for reducing the water consumption, the energy consumption by the county over a long-term period, maybe moving to zero-scape for our landscaping as water becomes a more challenging resource for us and the county. Also to consider things just like how do we reduce our light pollution emitted by our buildings. So anything the county can do to increase or preserve the night sky, I think would be a great opportunity. Also, the utilization of more green infrastructure, which is really simply considering permeable surfaces, so we reduce the impact of stormwater runoff And then how do we deal with stormwater management as we build more out into the county areas? Because the cities can't grow, we're going to have more and more issues with this. And then economic development, I'd like to see some specific strategies on how the county can assist or collaboratively with the other partners in pursuing industrial diversification and workforce training and development for those industries. And finally, are there things that the county can do for small business support in order to those businesses that do open, how can the county assist them, especially if they're outside the city limits and operating in the county area? Public health and well-being, I'd like to see specific planning for mental health infrastructure and services. That is a challenge for us right now, and it's only going to get bigger as our population grows more and more. One of the things that the county has not done, because it hasn't been needed, is recreational services. I think we need to consider that. We have one park, which is, great. We have a lot of open space, but as we build more and more subdivisions in the county, we need to consider preserving green spaces and open spaces for people's quality of life. Finally, the performance metrics and evaluation framework. I thought, obviously there's some good comments on that, but my experience has been if you have a plan where you don't have specific deliverables and answerables, then it's just a plan that doesn't ever get accomplished what you want to do.
Agreed.
So I'd like to see some strategies for developing key performance indicators for specific goals. So as we adopt the plan and start implementing it, we can determine if we're on track or not on track.
Thank you,
My
Commissioner Nettles. Commissioner Conlon.
And after that, he hit some of the highlights for me: mental health, water mitigation, floodplain management, particularly in Northeast. 1179 right now is a great example. As we work through our subdivision regs and that sort of thing, we've got a neighborhood out there right now that is new with $500,000, $750,000 homes that have water right up to the doorsteps now we've had some unusually large rain events, but
Sure.
still, there's one fellow that's lived out there since the neighborhood opened, and he's seen it 3 times. So as a county, as we move forward, and I think that's probably subdivision regs that we're going to really need to watch for floodwater management, mitigation of disaster.
Yeah, it seems like those events are getting more and more frequent.
That's
So-
true, but then we need to, I know you're not arguing against me.
No,
If-
no.
If they're getting more frequent, then we got to plan for them.
Absolutely.
Talking about Garrison Creek in particular, we've got a firefighter buddy of mine out there. His house is flooded twice. It's a
Jeez.
brand new $500,000 home. So that's the sort of thing that I think could be avoided with some proper planning and regulation.
Good news, we have that first meeting with subdivision regulations on Thursday.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Trevor, I'd like for you to add underutilized or property that's not used at all, and what our options are to sell those properties, and to get some prices on what those properties should bring on the open market.
Yes, sir.
And then in addition, I'd like for us to start getting contracts with surrounding counties that use our services. A real good example is the medical examiner's building. We should have had contracts with every surrounding county before we ever started building that thing, because we don't know what our total costs are going to be, what the utilization will be. But if we have contracts, we know that we're going to get business from other counties. So.
Are there other outside of the MEO? Are there other specifics,
I'm sure
areas
there- I'm
to
sure there
look
are.
at?
Just look at things that surrounding counties are using that we provide the service for. And I don't know off the top of my head
Okay.
what those are, but
No,
I mean,
that's fine.
so,
Good deal. We'll
Thank
get it added. Yes, sir.
thank you.
Commissioner Watson.
Okay, well, I'm in agreement with some of the things that are being added, because a number of calls that I get are people who don't realize that they've been sold property, and they don't know that the property that they're living on now is floodplains. And of course, once they find out, it's just a shock because it's so bad, but they've got property that And typically, we say that if it's in a floodplain, there's not a whole lot that we can do. And so as we talk about all the things that are being listed, as we talk about the budget and how we spend the budget, I hear a lot of wonderful things that are being talked about, but I get a little bit concerned about the cost of those things. And so I don't know how, as we try to be more proactive with green space and parks and whatever, and even mental health, that has always been one of my issues of concern. What are the limitations that we have for the county? I know if there's a mental health facility, we can't create a mental health facility, but certainly we can financially support one, and the need is so great. But there's so many factors that go into that. But for me right now, the biggest thing that I have residents have concern about is the floodplain issue, and what role the county can play and the cost of that. Because usually that's also a prohibitive issue related to what we can do. So
Right.
that means a lot of money for all of those things that are being, potentially a lot of money for all of the things that we're talking about, and whether or not Brazos County now has the resources to do that. I know in some other areas, those are issues that I was kind of surprised when I read some of the things that the other counties do. We've not done that. And we don't necessarily even have the funding to do that. So it'll be interesting as you research some of those issues. What are some of the potential costs that are associated with that?
Absolutely. And it wasn't on the list, but as you were kind of going through it, public education from like our side and kind of informing the citizens of a lot of this stuff, so they're not finding it out once it's too late. I think we're doing a lot better getting our word out and getting everybody informed as to what the county's doing.
Right.
But we can always do better, and we can always kind of dive deeper into some of these hot topic items.
But in one case in particular, a gentleman had bought some property a couple of years ago, and then as Commissioner Conderle is saying, we've had all this rain. So when we had all of that rain, I mean, the pictures that he brought me, I mean, he had probably at least 6 to 8 inches of water in his house. And we had to Road Bridges went out and did a review of what was happening out there, and had to tell him, you were sold property that's in a floodplain, which was kind of unfortunate that somebody did that, but people do what they do. And
Sure.
so, but it was not an issue that the county could resolve.
Right.
But it was within the county.
Thank you, Commissioner. Trevor,
All right.
thank you. I think what's clear here is we have a great scope. We have a great opportunity for a working document to bring us for the next 20, 25 years. Nothing that we're locked into. Working document, be able to be agile, nimble, be able to move. And Commissioner Nettles would like to speak again. Commissioner Nettles.
I had one thing on my list that I glanced over.
Sure.
But I think it's important. I'd like to see some detailed plans for business continuity for the county. What
Okay.
happens in case of disruption, and how do we deal with that, whether it's our IT infrastructure or roads or
Disaster recovery scenarios, things like that.
business continuity. How do we keep
Okay.
operating if we have a
All right.
weather or man-made challenge?
I'll tackle one of Commissioner Nettles' points, and that's economic development. And I think we have a new trajectory on that, and I'm looking forward to presenting that to the court soon. Your points on that, Commissioner Nettles, were spot on, and it's time for us to be very proactive. So, Trevor, this document
Absolutely.
is a great starting point. We appreciate your time and work and effort to bringing it today to the citizens and to this court.
Absolutely. The
Thank
last thing I'll mention is, my goal is to not come out of this and then just let this thing sit on the shelf. I think kind of having a plan moving forward to readdress it every 3-5 years, whatever the court whatever cadence the court wants to use with that. I think it'll be good for my predecessor, your predecessor, whoever comes after us, to sort of have this thing set up, run like a well-oiled machine.
I couldn't agree more, because look at the unique circumstances of this bench right now. And Wanda and I are not even 3 years on, and we're the senior members of the court. So yeah, I think this to that point, I really want to put an exclamation point behind that. I think that's going to be definitely not something you do otherwise. What a tremendous waste of money and time, but something that you can really abide by and evolve and make better. Future courts, future commissioners are going to come on here and have great input too, and make this document better as we go. But definitely a guiding principle for the county, where we're not having to figure out which way is north each time we want to do something. I think that and that's nothing against current operations, but it sure does help to have something like this. Yeah,
Absolutely.
We don't need to start all over every January.
Yes, sir.
That's right. Or every budget season, yeah.
Good deal. That's all I got.
Commissioners, any final points?
Thank you, Trevor. Nice jacket.
Thank you.
Commissioners, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Well, this concludes the budget, the workshop on a consent calendar and the master plan. I thank you all for being here. We will adjourn now, and we will see you at 10 o'clock sharp. We are now adjourned.